Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're streaming from. This is Carla Frade from the Center for Art Law. It is my pleasure to welcome you all today for our first clinic showcase. Our idea today is to really show a bit about the work that we have been doing at the clinics, our offerings, what you can expect to learn if you're attending, what you can expect to gain if you're volunteering. So we are very excited to welcome you today. I want to thank our speakers, Dave, Scott, Olivia, and Rebecca for coming in, taking their time to volunteering with us again for today's session. We are looking forward to talking to you and also to learn a little bit more about you. You should be seeing a poll launch in your screen. We want to just to have an idea of the profile of the audience today. And if you are interested, there's also an opportunity for you to let us know in which capacity do you want to volunteer and give us your email if you want to register, subscribe to our newsletter. Our goal today is to have to let you know about the clinic. So this is a very informative session. We want to attendees to better understand what clinics are, and if you are a prospective volunteer, how to get involved. We are recording this meeting for our own archival purposes. It will not be published. So before I get started, a little bit about the work of the center. We are a Brooklyn-based research and education nonprofit. We are dedicated to offering resources and programs to advance the arts and law communities. Through our website, our newsletter, our events, we disseminate information and update our audiences on all things art law. So news, programs, cases, publications, and a lot more. We facilitate conversations, learning opportunities, and clinics are also a huge part of this effort. So a little bit about our clinics. What exactly are they for those who might not have never taken part in one? Clinics are one type of events that the center hosts. It's intended to be a very practical approach to art and law. It's structured as a two-part, let's say, conversation. The first part are our introductory remarks, where participants can gain insight into a specific topic of the law. And then they go on to individual consultations. These are private, confidential, 20-minute slots with attorneys and other art professionals. This is intended to bridge the gap between theory and practice. So participants really have a very interesting opportunity to speak to someone about their cases. This is, of course, just just an initial consultation, but it should put you in the right path in solving your legal problems. We currently have 4 topics that are addressed by our clinics. We first started in 2020 with our immigration law clinics. So for foreign artists, mainly that's our target audience, looking to come into the US. Then we opened in 21, we inaugurated our legacy and estate planning clinic. This is quite an interesting clinic because it allows participants to talk to sorry, there's a message about the recording. So legacy and estate planning clinics, we can talk to either an attorney, art appraiser, also financial advisors such as consultants. So it's quite a 360 view into the legacy and estate planning process. In 2022, we inaugurated our artist-dealer relationships clinic, looking to address contracts, consignments, all the questions our artists may have in dealing with their galleries. And last but not least, this spring, we had our first copyright law clinic. We are excited to have more additions coming up. Also, for those looking to volunteer with the center, rest assured you will be well trained. This past summer we had our first lawyering boot camp, which is a practical hands-on training for those who want to volunteer and maybe start working with a new topic. This is a day-long event in person, happened here in New York, where veteran lawyers will teach the basics of the legal field. And also we will have a module at the end of the training with artists coming in so that our attorneys volunteer attorneys can really learn how to approach their legal issues, how to better what's the best way to address it, to ask the questions, and really how to best talk with this specific type of clients, which are artists. It's also worth noting for our attorneys in the audience that this is a CLE event, so it's I really encourage you to come in and participate. And we're always going forward, thinking of new ways to expand our reach. We're currently in the works of expanding the scope of the artist-dealer relationships clinic in 25. Our idea is to maybe bring 1 or 2 cases in-house. We will have a supervising attorney working at the center with our students and interns to help them give legal advice in this case. The center in itself does not render legal advice. We're not a law firm, so we always count with the help of our generous volunteers to advise our artists. And if you are looking to participate, I think the clinics have something to benefit to everyone. So for volunteers, this is a great way to give back to the community, to hone your legal skills, potentially expand your practice. For artists, these are very inexpensive consultations. I think we charge $10 for just watching the keynote presentation and $20 for the 20-minute consultation. So it's really a very good value for money to get your first step into solving your legal problem. And for students, these are great ways to gain knowledge on a specific topic of the law. In particular, for our interns and students, we also strive to get them to shadow the attorneys at this consultation, so it can also be a very practical learning experience. And without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce you to our panelists for the day, Dave Bright, Olivia Taylor, Scott Shoulder, and Rebecca Lenetsky. I am very looking forward to hearing from you all, and I would kindly ask you to briefly, if you can introduce yourself, saying which clinic have you volunteered for and why. Maybe we can go in order, Dave, Olivia, Scott, and Rebecca.
Sure, I'm happy to start. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name's Dave Bright. I am an attorney. I work at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. I am in the College of Law, where I serve as an adjunct professor and also as the associate director of an academic research center called the Iowa Nonprofit Resource Center. I became involved with the work of the Center for Art Law. I really don't remember when I started attending the online programs and the online content that was available, because it was, in many cases, things I couldn't find anywhere else, and it was always excellent programming. And so I got interested in the center initially as an educational resource for myself as a practitioner. And once I discovered the value that it had, and that I could then take some of that knowledge plus knowledge I had and turn around and give it back to the center, then I was more than happy to start participating in these clinics. And I've served as an advisor in the legacy and estate planning clinics. I went back through my email, and Outlook is moody today, so I can't say how far back it went, but I think it was 2022 was the first time that I had done it, and I believe have done it every year since that time. And it's an excellent clinic that I'm excited to be a part of, and I'm happy to be here today to discuss everyone's work. Thank you.
Great. Piggybacking off that, it's also great to be here with everyone. I'm Olivia Taylor. I'm an attorney at Pryor Cashman with their art law group, and I've been involved with the center for many, many years now. I first started as an intern before going to law school, and then continued first as a student member to the advisory board, and now a non-student barred attorney member of the advisory board. And was always interested in the clinics in particular because, it's a chance to actually interface with people who have legal issues, but are maybe not the sort of person that I see in my practice every day. So at Pryor Cashman, and I was also at a big law firm with an art law group prior to Pryor Cashman. You really see just the upper echelons of the art market being able to come and afford legal services. So the clinics interested me in getting to a broader audience And so I've done the copyright clinic as well as the artist dealer relationships clinic. My practice is primarily transactional, but I've also worked on disputes and litigation. And I think that's all I'll say for the moment, but happy to talk more later about my background.
Hi, everyone. Scott Shoulder, partner at Cowan Debates, Abrahams and Shepherd. I'm the co-chair of litigation practice. My practice focuses mainly on copyright and trademark litigation. We are a boutique firm located in New York with an office in LA. We do primarily entertainment and media work, including work in the fine art space and the digital art space, Web3 art, all kind of various aspects of the art industry. We've been, involved with the Center for Art Law for several years. I'm a member of the advisory board. So very happy to be here talking to everybody. And the copyright law clinic was the one that seemed most relevant to my practice and my, set of skills and understanding and my knowledge base. So I always love talking about art. It was a good opportunity to get involved and talking to some people and just trying to give back and help at least get them started on the road towards solving whatever problem they have.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here as well, and thank you for all joining us. My name is Rebecca Lenetsky. I am a partner at A. Farkas Law, which is a boutique immigration law firm. Mainly practice employment-based immigration, including working with artists. I don't only work with artists, but I've worked with artists throughout my career, musicians, people in the arts industry tangentially. And I've always really liked also working with emerging artists as well as established artists, helping through the visa process, green card process, or people who are coming for residency programs, maybe don't need a long-term visa or coming for short visits for other reasons and need sort of immigration advice, how to deal with the immigration system. I don't remember when I first got involved with the Center for Art Law, but I remember having initial conversations about how we could support integrating a few cases being handled in-house by the center and whether that was feasible. And I think that eventually morphed into doing maybe the first immigration clinic where I spoke as well. And I think I did another couple of clinics and then was on a kind of conversation panel with an artist talking about the OWA extraordinary ability visa for artists and what the process looks like sort of for the attorney and for the client or artist as well. And I've just always loved working with students, emerging artists, people who are finding their way into the US art market and art space and navigating the complicated visa process. So it's always been very fulfilling to me to be able to do the clinic and meet people who are just trying to figure out how to navigate this process.
Thank you. These are all very inspiring stories. And could you also please describe the people, some of the clients, let's say, that you help during your clinic sessions? I understand most of you have talked to artists. Are there any special cases, something out of the ordinary that you have encountered in your practice?
I'd say for me, I love the range of people that I meet through the clinics. I have spoken with artists where I saw the name on the list and I knew who that artist was, right? That was someone that I had been aware of. And then also artists that I had not heard of, that are emerging artists, new artists. So I found that for my clinic, the one that I'm participating in, the range of it is very representative of my practice, right? It's whoever is coming in the door and you might not be able to predict it. So I think it's representative often of what the work is like in private practice. And I like that it offers a variety, that means that you're reaching groups of people who are at all stages, but may not be at all stages of that process, right? Because just because someone has been working their whole lives and has established quite a body of work and maybe has, had financial success and critical success, they may not have done one thing to prepare for that plan, right? Just because the career has been busy and they've been living and they've had families and they're doing all the things that we all do that keep us from taking the time to sit down and prepare an estate plan. But artists often have very different, challenges and unique aspects to an estate plan. The intellectual property side of it, obviously the legacy side of it. There can be many other factors at work there that aren't a part of it. So the sooner someone can start talking about it, the better. And this offers that opportunity for people to just start talking, to just start having the conversation, because that's often the hardest with this kind of a process, is to just find the time to set it aside to get in the door and start going. And I think it serves a very good function that way across the spectrum.
Thank you, Dave. I think one of the interesting facts in the artist legacy and estate planning is also that we are used to having heirs of our large estates. Also, some other professionals, maybe somebody that's the manager of the studio of the artist. It's quite interesting that I think we have a wide range of. It's not just the artists. I'm not sure if you maybe have worked with these different profiles as well.
Yes, I've seen that. In some instances, I've had the artist and their spouse or partner talking about it. In another instance, I had adult children of artists talking about it, just in terms of trying to get their head around what would be expected of them, what the roles they would play. All of those have arisen in the sense of a person who knows it's happening, but has asked someone to look into it for them. So it never has been a situation where it was a true third party without, the artist's involvement or knowledge. But the adult children format is a common one, particularly in the estate planning process, because it's oftentimes adult children who are called on, obviously, to care for their parents and to help with those things. And so I have seen that as well. And sometimes it's before the artist has passed, and other times, unfortunately, it's after. So at that point, it becomes a little bit of it's a different process, right? And when you're working with an artist who's alive, obviously they have the opportunity to provide input, to provide direction, to give you a sense of what would matter to them, how they would want their legacy protected, those things. When it's after the fact, the children certainly still know their parents, or the heirs still know the artist or whoever they were working with, and you can still get good information. But oftentimes at that point, it involves some speculation or interpretation, because they aren't there to give you that direct guidance. And so not only is there never too early of a time to start, but particularly when the artist is alive is obviously the ideal, because you can just have them be part of their own process, which is best.
Thank you. Olivia, Rebecca, Scott, would any of you would like to maybe talk a little bit about the profile of the audience that you see in your clients?
Yeah, I'm happy to go next, just because that was the order we had previously. But I think it's interesting, like you said, there are artists. What surprised me is also the mediums that are represented among those artists, because in my practice at Prior Cashman, you see a lot of painters, sculptors, occasionally photographers, filmmakers, those types of people. But I've also gone through the clinic, illustrators, a quite bit more photographers, as well as sort of, just paint, traditional painting mediums. I think I even had maybe neon ones. So there's a range of the different types of artists, and it's also a clinic that may be similar to the copyright clinic. It's quite market based. It's not just planning and immigration. It's really knowing, like, what are the business terms. So I've really only experienced advising dealers and artists, but I'd be interested. I think it's relevant also to other market players, like we've seen sort of artist agents arise. I think they could benefit from the clinic too, and other sort of third parties that really benefit from knowing what that artist dealer relationship looks like. So I'm hoping that we get even more people coming to the clinic interested from those perspectives.
Yeah, and in addition to kind of traditional, artists that we've been talking about, I've also spoken to filmmakers and people kind of in the audio-visual space that you think about art, certainly it is one of the many art forms that are out there, but not, think about art law, you probably will think of fine art, painting, digital art, sculpture, things like that. So it's interesting to see people in kind of the main industries that my firm serves, apart from the fine art side of things, which is television and film and digital media, and then some folks from the academic world too, that have more questions about policy and kind of the law in general and how AI applies to students, and where it's going from a kind of a pedagogical standpoint. So it's an interesting uh, variety of people that you talk to.
Yeah, so I work with artists at all different stages of their careers, and with all different degrees of experience. But I think that primarily who we saw through the clinics, or we see through the clinics, are MFA students, PFA students who are finishing up and trying to figure out how to transition onto a visa, or people who are fairly emerging, or younger artists. The thing about immigration is that even if you want to avoid having to deal with the legal aspects of it, it's not like estate planning. It's going to come from you. You're going to have contact with an immigration officer or some sort of legal process to enter the country or to stay in the country, or ideally you will, to have legal status here. So if you're coming to the clinic, you probably haven't had a visa yet. You're finishing your degree, or you are visiting, or maybe you're doing a residency program for which you don't necessarily need a full-time work visa, and you're trying to figure out what is the next step. Or I've had some consultations at the clinics with people who were not quite on the right type of visa for what they were actually doing or what they wanted to be doing. So we would sometimes have people on something that was a little bit more of a technical visa, or not quite suitable for a creative endeavor, that for various different reasons, expediency, convenience, their profile, they got their type of job that they had available to them at that moment, they applied for, and now either their practice had grown, or they realized that it wasn't so appropriate to be staying on that type of visa. So we talked about just strategically how to change them into a different category. And that's a conversation I've had in the clinic and outside the clinic. So yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. And following up on your answer, you've dealt with quite a range of clients in different situations. What's some of the things that maybe you wish your clients knew beforehand, to how could they prepare better for their consultations? What would be your your piece of advice to them?
It always helps, obviously, when someone has a CV or a portfolio, or like a press kit about themselves. That's very important for the types of visas that we do for artists, to have a public profile and have the information about your public profile. And the more that we can see that in person on the day of, the less speculation there is. Especially, I would say, like anything like press or information about awards, because obviously if you have you may have awards listed on your CV, but you don't necessarily have all your press coverage listed on your CV, or even press coverage of your gallery, or the galleries where you've shown, or the institutions where you've shown your work. So any tangible information that we can look at will give us a better idea of the qualification than just sort of speculating, does this sound based on vibes,
Thank you. And Dave, same question to you. Are artists required to come in with a draft will or any type of like a catalog resume? What is useful for you in helping your clients out at clinics?
For the legacy and estate planning clinics, they can really come with nothing. right? I mean, and if they have documents that have been prepared that they want to, review, discuss, maybe revise, ask questions about, we can certainly talk about those and go through those. I always sort of start by letting them know that it's quite likely we won't get through everything tonight, right? Like a lot of the questions will take more time than beyond that. Here's my email. We can certainly continue that conversation. So then that way people don't feel rushed and understand coming in that it's just the first conversation. It's not the only. And then I would usually start with sort of a baseline of, so where are we? What is there a plan in place? If not, what's your understanding of the basic estate planning documents? If the situation is, allows, then sometimes that's the way the conversation will proceed. And it's a sort of an overview of what is the estate planning process, what is the probate process, what are the common documents and tools that you use in those processes, and if they're on the probate side, obviously we lean more into that. And if it's something that's a conversation during a lifetime of an artist, then we talk about what the plan could be and how you would craft it. And then if they do have something, we can certainly look at it. If they want to have a conversation about making revisions, then that certainly has to be its own conversation, because you'd have to look at, is this something where we do need to engage maybe local counsel, or do we need to be bringing in somebody from the IP side to talk about this, depending on what type of media the artist is using. So catalog, probably not so much something they'd have to bring to it, but that would eventually become part of it, because as you discussed the artist and the work that they did, and you started to learn about the particularities of it. One of the most recent ones was not only the work, but the facility where the artist did it, because the facility was, shall we say, unusually large, right? And worked well for all the artist's needs, but what was the practicality of that after the fact? And so sometimes there can be very particular parts of an artist's existence or estate or life or whatever it is that require you to look a little further into things like, say, maybe, okay, what would be your tax hit on a building like this, depending on how long you've owned it, or what are the current zoning requirements? Are you grandfathered so that you can continue to use this property, but if someone else purchased it, that conveyance would close out that grandfathering and you wouldn't be able to use it for those purposes anymore? So oftentimes too, it can, based on their specific situation, you start to get into other areas of the law. So sometimes it's good to bring in those additional advisors as you start to work through that. But yeah, usually nothing's required to start talking. That's for sure.
Thank you. I'm glad. And maybe moving on to Scott, could you tell us a little bit more? Why do you think the clinic is important, the copyright clinic is important, and do you anticipate it becoming more or less important in 25?
I think it's important because copyright and anything legal is not necessarily at the forefront of an artist's mind when they're creating a piece and when they're trying to get it sold, or regardless of what medium you're talking about. And there are a lot of common misconceptions about copyright law that I'm always surprised at the people that I'm talking to who share these misconceptions. Kind of, yeah, sophisticated, experienced people who, when you tell them something like this didn't specifically happen, but I've had people not understand before that just because something's on the internet doesn't mean you can't right click and save it. On the internet doesn't mean public domain. So that didn't come up in the context of the clinic. But I've had that conversation with many people, whether in a personal or a business capacity, and it's those kinds of things that that artists should understand, at least at a basic level, in terms of how to protect themselves from liability, how to protect their content, what constitutes content that can be copyrighted or protected. How do you go about doing that in terms of registration? How do you get that extra protection? And a lot of stuff in copyright law is counterintuitive, like the fact that you own the copyright as soon as you create the work, but then you have to register it if you ever want to enforce those rights. people don't necessarily understand that. From a litigation standpoint, I've spoken to people about matters that, litigation type matters or other adversarial matters that they've had. And there's a lot of stuff about the process, just in general, the court system and the litigation process that people don't understand. And that's, obviously it's par for the course for a layperson who is not practicing law. Of course, you're not necessarily going to know a lot about how litigation works. So I think both from a kind of doctrinal copyright standpoint and from a litigation procedure standpoint, it's important when people have problems in those areas. And then I think it will become more important just because as technology continues to change, the issues get more complicated. Generative AI is kind of like on everything and on everybody's mind right now. And the copyright law is just, the law scrambles to keep up with technology always. And so when as big a sea change as AI comes along, you really need to try to be as informed as possible to understand the implications. So I do think it'll be more important than ever to, get up to things and get advice from people who are kind of living it day to day.
Perfect. Yes, we have seen an increase in demand especially for artificial intelligence topics. We always strive to have the keynote presentations at least touch upon the issue, and we have done some dedicated programs as well to the topic. So please, for those interested in copyright law, keep an eye on our programs and keep attending the clinics. That's something we strive to always touch upon. And maybe moving on now to Olivia, could you maybe let us know some of the legal issues that you have, some traditional, non-traditional legal issues that you have encountered in your clinic? How the clinic aims to address both?
Yes, I mean, it's art law, so even the traditional issues are still really baseline in need of widespread education. It's still people coming to me and wanting to know about the New York Cultural Affairs law. So, there's a good deal of that. And I would say also for the people that are emerging artists coming to the clinic, it's also the fact that art school doesn't necessarily always have wonderful art law professors who are there, teaching this on the side. So they come out, and I've had an artist who had one dealer that was representing her in a group show and maybe some other shows. And it was sort of becoming a tense thing, but other dealers are interested, and what can I do? What can I do? Really, that clinic is about the relationship, and why, it was first created is because it is really unique. You're not at odds with each other. You want to work together, but also there are so many disputes that pop up, and clarity brings a lot to the relationship. And sometimes there's not even, we still don't have really robust written agreements for these relationships. So the traditional issues still exist and persist, and especially for emerging artists who, have not been around the market long enough to have just received enough agreements and interactions to know what's standard. It's still addressing the traditional issues for them. I would say non-traditionally, the shift in the market is where we're seeing, maybe some area where there's going to be more negotiation, going to be more change away from the standard, where you see that, emerging artists do have a lot of power. They have power not just because the contemporary market can move quite quick if an artist picks up, and they have much more access now to gallery representation all over the world, from a young age, potentially sometimes, but also the fact that they can market themselves, and through social media channels and everything, are quite good at it. So things like memorializing, when a sale comes through the artist or the artist agent, when someone's seen it on social media, but they didn't go directly through a DM or something like that. It's hard to track, where sales originations and introductions are coming from. and how, as an artist in this day and age, to keep dealer relationships when you don't have a tradition, sort of, I'm exclusive with this dealer for this amount of time. So I'm getting a question of what's a DM. A DM is a direct message via a social media channel. You would be very surprised how many art deals are going down in direct messages in social media channels. That's another area because, if there are written communications in social media channels, okay, is it a contract? How do those relate to legal responsibilities? So those are some of the areas that are interesting me in terms of, you might not be seeing it in my practice as much, but someone who's at a much, more emerging or like lower value level, it might not be working through the same well-grooved channels. So yes, that's some of the non-traditional issues.
Great. Sounds all very interesting. And maybe a question for all of you, since we're talking about the topics that you're seeing at the clinics, could you maybe give us one or two examples of some frequently asked questions at the clinic? Maybe we can start with Rebecca.
Sure. Frequently asked questions. At the clinic and other clinics I've done, other frequent consultations, I often get the question, do I need a visa at all? Can I come as a tourist? What can I do as a tourist? Trying to avoid the question of getting a visa in the first, a work visa, long-term visa in the first place. There are a lot of things that you can do as a tourist on a B1, B2, or ESTA, but there are a lot of things that you cannot do, and especially post-pandemic, with everyone being kind of a digital nomad, I would say that that's even more of a hot topic because people do spend a lot of time traveling or working remotely, and there's definitely the misconception that if you're in the United States and not working for an employer that's located in the United States, that somehow you're not working. So that's something that's definitely come up a lot. If the money's not coming to a U.S. bank account, that somehow not actually working in the United States. That comes up a lot with people in the arts who often get paid in unconventional ways or are working for clients who are around the world, but are basically living full-time in the United States. And also, what are you confined to the work that has been outlined in your visa, or what scope of activities are you allowed, or engagements are you allowed to take on under existing visa or work agreements? That's also often a hot topic because visual artists or people working in the arts generally are obviously often looking for different sources of income, and to diversify, you may not be able to support yourself just from your artistic practice. So that's obviously a very critical question and can be really hard for foreign artists who are living full-time, especially if they're in New York City, where cost of living is very high. You may not be able to live from your art practice, but you may not be able to engage in the types of side employment that US-born or people with a green card or citizenship can engage in to support their art practice. So that's definitely a challenge I confront.
Thank you. Maybe we can move on to Scott.
Yeah, I don't think I can't think of anything that has like come up that frequently that's common, but I think a question that is very common in kind of in general in advising clients, whether it's through the clinic or not, is whether you actually need a copyright registration. And so this kind of goes back to my point about some things in copyright law, or many things in copyright law, are counterintuitive. This concept that you own your art as soon as you make it, but you can't do anything about it unless you register it. So it's this kind of weird thing that you have to explain to artists, and then, well, how much does it cost to register? Well, it depends on what the work is, and it depends on how many you have, and is it published or not published, and there's all kinds of technicalities that go into figuring out how best to register a work if you're going to register at all. And then, one of the other kind of common questions I've gotten obviously through the clinic and elsewhere is like, do I have a claim here? Can I sue for A, B, and C? And is there a breach of contract? Is there copyright infringement? Did they steal my idea? And so obviously that's going to be a big old, it depends. And sometimes I can't even give a direct answer like at the initial consultation. And so just kind of going back to a question from a little while ago about what to bring with you or how to be prepared. If you're going to ask the question like, do I have a claim here? You need like essentially an executive summary of your case.
Okay.
Because it's nothing formal, like you don't have to like write up bullet points or make a PowerPoint presentation or something like that. But if there is a specific dispute that you've got brewing or that has occurred already or that might occur, having the high level facts, like the most important facts available to try to get a general idea of what's going on, like in 5 minutes, because we're talking about a 20-minute consultation. And so even to give kind of a rough estimate back of the envelope, like what kind of claim do I have here? Is there a statute of limitations problem? Where would we file? What's the proper jurisdiction or venue? You need some basic information. So just having a good outline of the high level facts, who are the parties, what happened and when, and how are you damaged, or how do you think you were damaged, is very helpful and I think would make for a much more productive conversation.
Thank you. On that note, we do have for prospective attendees, we usually send out a form when you're purchasing your tickets, so you can share with us a little bit about your case and what kind of advice you're looking for. And that's always very helpful when artists, attendees share as much as they can. It really helps out lawyers. And to piggyback on something else you said, we are hosting a copyright registration workshop on December 5th. It's as Scott said, it's really, really important, and I invite you all to take a look at the event. There are discounted fees for artists and students. It is something that can really be, it's very important in your practice, especially if you're dealing with infringement. So please take a look at that in our website. And maybe we can move to Olivia, some of the frequently asked questions at your clinic.
I think rather than substantively, because this has been touched on by Scott and Rebecca a little bit, there's just a question about what even is the process here. So if there is a dispute, or if I do need you to actually look at my agreement or draft me an agreement, what does that look like? So I think one of the benefits of the clinic is being able to give people that information and point them in the right direction. So explaining what it means to engage someone like me and have me do the work, what that looks like time-wise, cost-wise. And if I'm not a good option, who are the other people out there that could do it? And if this is more of a pro bono route, directing them to someplace like VLA and describing how that process works. Because I think that people actually, are looking for a professional to help them. It's just they're not even sure what that would continue to look like after the clinic. And helpfully, like even someone who's gotten to the clinic, that's great because they've either been industrious enough to research and find it, or someone's recommended it to them. But a lot of the times the question is looking to, okay, this is not the only question I had. This is not the only dispute that's popped up. Usually the more you ask, the more you find that there's been other instances where someone wished that they had advisement, or they gave up on a dispute. So it's also guiding them on when is that worthwhile and what does that process look like.
Thank you. And last but not least, Dave, could you also, besides the frequently asked questions, maybe reflect on how the clinic has, the questions have evolved since you first started working at the clinic? Do you see any
Sure.
changes?
There's sort of, sometimes the question is, do I need an estate plan, right? Like, do I even have to do this? Is this something? So there's sort of the segment of people that I'll get connected with where it's sort of like explaining what the systems are, right? So that they can just even understand why they function before you get into any specifics about what they would use if they were in. And then many times it's a definitional where someone will say, for example, well, someone told me that I should create a trust to avoid probate, and then someone else said I should have a will and just go through probate. So then it's a comparative of, well, this is how that process works, and this is how the other process works. And so there, a lot of times it's just sort of almost like a sorting conversation where they're trying to understand what they should even be looking at, and then you're trying to help them understand what's in there and what they need to look at. And then there are the complete opposite, right? The very, very specific questions about, this particular type of work or this particular type of licensing, or so, something where then maybe you do start to think about, okay, do I have to engage another practitioner? Is this something like we need to have a maybe more of a team approach, or a referral if it's a little bit outside of the scope? I think the way it's changed is I feel like people are responsive more when like I said earlier, I always tell them, here's my email address. This is not a one-time get it all in while you can kind of approach. I'm happy to talk later. And I feel like more people take me up on that. I think at first there was almost like just not maybe that, they didn't realize that you could continue it, or that maybe I needed to be just, I don't know, more insistent, that it's something that's okay. But I have noticed that as I've continued to do them, I get more follow-ups from people. And then even in some cases, there was a young man that I started talking to in early 2023, and he's probably emailed me 4 or 5 times since with other questions that are outside of what we talked about initially. One of them was an agreement, one of them was a lease. And so he's really started to engage and be a good consumer of the service, because he's asking before he signs things, which I love. that's the best right there. Call me first. I'll probably still tell you to sign it, but let's read it. So but so it's also starting to develop some of those longer term relationships. I have one that's just sort of getting started now that I feel like will be similar to that, and that will be able to help them with just more than this part of it. So I think that's one, whereas I think it's probably as people see the clinics happen more and more, and see the value and see the merit in them and everything else, that's probably part of a trend we'll hopefully see, that it will lead to those bigger and broader engagements. So I'm hopeful for that.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talk about evolving and going forward with the clinics, I'm curious to hear from Rebecca. What are your expectations for 25? Do you think questions will change, or is there a specific area of the law you think, of immigration law, that you think will be more in demand with the incoming administration?
So I actually just had a really, really strong recollection of a discussion I had at the first clinic I did, which I guess was in the very early 2020. So first Trump administration, pre-pandemic. Carla and Trey and I were just briefly before we started this call talking about what we think, what I think is going to happen, what everyone is sort of feeling about the new upcoming Trump administration. Number two, my practice area changed a lot in 2017, and I wouldn't say that it entirely reverted back under Biden, but it definitely, a lot of things that it changed did change back, and the pandemic also affected the practice of immigration law quite a bit. But I remember I had a conversation with an artist who had been taking some sort of public benefits, and that had just become a question that was going to be included in the visa and green card process about whether one had received certain public benefits, and that's always an aspect of immigration law, but it was being developed into a much more robust and comprehensive questionnaire. There was a lot of uncertainty about how this was going to be enforced. I think it was probably blocked by an injunction and then reinstituted, and then there were a few different iterations of it that came out. I completely forgotten about this, but that I think is probably going to be brought back in a big way, and I think also they're going to be a little bit smarter about how this gets rolled out, and I think the legal challenges are not going to be as effective this time, because obviously now that they've had the opportunity to workshop the approach to this. As I noted previously, we saw a lot of changes in terms of deference to prior approvals being completely removed as a matter of policy. Processing times are going to get a lot longer. I think just in general, it's going to be wiser to be a little bit more proactive about one's immigration status. I think there may be protected classes that are going to be, that are discretionary executive programs that were attempted to be eliminated the last administration and blocked through the courts, and probably will be more successful this time. So I think it's going to be a really challenging and unexpected time. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty, and I think all the more reason for clinics, because there's a lot that comes out in the news that is half true, is not true, is just a rumor, may not be implemented, and there's a lot of misinformation around immigration, and it's an area that obviously you can't sort of ignore. Either you deal with it or your status is in jeopardy. So it's something that I think the clinics will be really important for.
Thank you. I think everybody can see we addressed lots of questions. 2025 will definitely be a busy year for immigration lawyers. We are looking to we were planning on hosting the immigration clinic in June. We might maybe bring it over to February, because I feel like that foreign artists really are apprehensive, and we'll have lots of questions to ask at this clinic and other clinics as well. So this will conclude our session on the chat part. We are now, thank you so much to our volunteers once again for working with us, for coming here today. And we are now looking forward to hear from you in the audience. I think we had some questions in the chat. It would be great if any of you have participated in our clinics, if you have any feedback for us. Perhaps there is a new clinic we could offer, or some topics in the clinics that we already offer that you would be interested in hearing about. So do let us know if there's anything we can do for you. Let me take a look at the chat. I see that Freya had asked about the clinics, right? Sorry. So we had a question on the DM. Are there any questions in the audience? Freya, could you maybe help me?
Sure thing. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody would like to add any comments, if you'd like to know what we're planning for next year, if you have more suggestions on what we should cover in terms of the clinics or programming related to the clinics, please feel free to either put it in the chat or even to unmute yourself, or we would love to hear from you.
There was a question about Emma on volunteering with the clinic. We had prepared the slides. So for those of you who may be interested, please register your interest through our volunteer form. We do ask volunteers to be attorneys licensed in the US. For the Legacy and Estate Planning Clinic, we also take appraisers and financial advisors. Those, of course, do not have to have a bar license. But we do ask that all volunteers have at least 1 year of experience in the field of the clinic. If you are eligible, we will reach out to you to ask for further documents, your resume, your resume, sorry, short bio on the work that you do in that topic. If approved, you will be included in our volunteer roster, and we will reach out to you once we start planning our next clinic. So bear with us. It is a process for registering the volunteers, but we always make sure to take a look at the volunteer forms that we received and reach out to you. So Emma, I will probably reach if you recently registered your interest. Please wait a bit. I will get in touch with you too. If you have not received my email yet, I will be in touch. Okay. Scott has a question for Olivia on starting a gallery. Scott, I will invite you to bring your question over to our December 18 clinic on artist-dealer relationships. I think you will be best advised coming in and bringing your question to a confidential and private consultation with one of our attorneys. I'm not sure if you're an American artist or if you need help with UK law, we can strive to find a UK lawyer to help you with your demand. If this is not something that we can help you with, please email us at clinic@itsartlaw.org. I'm gonna put that in the chat so we can find if you have any specific questions that clinics cannot address, we will strive to refer you to one attorney. And as I was saying, we have a clinic on December 18 on artist-dealer relationships. Clinics usually come with a workshop on the same topic to get you in the mood for that session, let's say. We are having, as I said, the copyright registration workshop on December 5th. We are aiming to have one conversation on December 19th, yet to be confirmed, on galleries closing and what artists can do about it. And you can see on the screen our offerings for the 2025 year. We usually host 2 sessions of each clinic, the exception being Legacy and Estate Planning, which has 3 sessions because it's a very in-demand program. And immigration, we are currently only doing 1 session during the year. We also will have the boot camps. I know there is a question on the next boot camps. We are hoping to do one in spring for the copyright law clinic and another one in summer for artist-dealer relationships. The best way for you to keep updated about our offerings is to follow us on social media. Let me put the information on the screen. Sorry. And we have our website with some background information on each clinic. If you subscribe to our newsletter, we will make sure to keep you updated on our next offerings. And also, please email us. Follow us on social media. Our handles are Center for Art Law or It's Art Law, and you can also email us at clinic@itsartlaw.org with any specific question. Thank you, Afreya. The information is already in the chat. Let me see if there are other questions. I don't think so. And since we are almost at time, I wanted to, just as a final note, that these are quite, as I said, these are quite inexpensive programs. We are able to host these clinics at very competitive prices due to donations that the center receives through our membership as well. So we invite you to contribute to the center, to the work that we do, and help us keep hosting these offerings. We currently have consultations, I think, are at $20 for 20-minute consultation. So this is really a great value. And as the end of the year approaches, if you are feeling generous, I would invite you to consider maybe directing your donations to the Center for Art Law. We have an ambitious goal to raise $5,000 by Giving Tuesday. You can find all information in Instagram account. It has the links to donate, and it also has some posts on the work that we do. If you want to learn more, just beyond the clinics, you can find all this information there. It is also a very good idea of becoming a member. I invite you to think about it. Members have access to our case law database, our over 1,200 articles in all topics art law, and most importantly, you can access all of our past event recordings. You can also have discounted admissions to our events. So it's really is of good value for money, and we do have discounted memberships for artists and students. We are looking forward to engaging with you, and thank you so much for coming today and for your questions. I think they were all answered, and I think I'm happy to stay around for if you have any more questions, and please stay in touch with us. Thank you once again to our panelists for coming today and for your continued work with the center. Thank you. We'll stop recording.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.